Hello, Fanfest! Nice to be back here lørdag with you. I'm CCP Blue Screen.
I'm CCP Benson.
I'm CCP Midgood.
And yeah, it's been a while. Way too long. This was us at last Fanfest. But yeah, as you are hopefully all aware of by now, we are here representing Team Tri-Lambda. The graphics team of Online. So we're a multidisciplinary team of about 20 artists with graphics programmers, artists, and quality assurance specialists. And so what have we been doing here the last couple of years? Although we've been working from home, we have managed to get some stuff done. So let's have a look back at some of the stuff that we rolled out since we last saw you here at Harpa at Fanfest. So we did a bunch of monuments, both in honor of players and their achievements, and also to commemorate in-game history and events. And also we managed to build a brand new JITA trade hub, both exterior and interior, with the new hangar environment as well. And of course the air laboratories as part of the new player experience and environments, both exterior and also a new hangar there. And of course we managed to get a whole lot of skins done. Here's the Capture Day skin. And a lot of new environments for various occasions, from the new player experience environments, supporting the capital ship production with the Overmind nursery and the Aegis capital ship facilities. And many other regular events as well. We also saw the Triglavians complete their push into New Eden by invading various systems. A lot of content there, and super carriers. We made huge updates to these awesome ships. So there's been quite a lot going on, and I'm not going to scroll through all of it. So we put together some of the highlights in a short video, so we can wrap that up. So let's just roll that. Yeah. So yeah, that was a lot of stuff. But now let's look forward and look into the future and the third decade that I hand you over to CCP Midgood.
Thank you. So we are now embarking on the journey of setting EVE Online up for its third decade. With a renewed focus on art, graphics, audio, engine improvements, all to make EVE viscerally supreme. Now, the spirit of EVE Online's graphics has, since at least 2007, been one of continual rejuvenation. for you, our players, and coming generations of players, so that EVE remains not just relevant, but vibrant and absolutely as stunningly beautiful as we can make it at any present time. And as we close in on the third decade, we want to be setting ourselves up for success by gaining meaningful improvements to our capabilities via the toolbox of technology that makes up how EVE is made. This then, in turn, will result in a higher quality game experience for you as we go. A more visceral, more visual, reactive, and dynamic experience. And you've seen some examples of that in recent things like the new player experience. EVE Online's tools team has also been hard at work behind the scenes. They're completely reworking our editor into a more modern framework. And as you might have seen, if you played the new tutorial, then many of the things that they have implemented for us over the last couple of years paid massive dividends in making that experience just really much more reactive, dynamic, and interesting. All sorts of stuff happening as you fly and go through. Now, last year, the art team, along with representatives from the engine team, had many discussions and brainstorms talking about what we should prioritize and about what would bring the most benefit to EVE, and as to what might have the most impact and open up the most possibilities for the coming decade in graphics. From that, a number of priorities and initiatives emerged, some from the top of which we are ready to talk about here today. And not to forget, some that have been a long time coming or are already ongoing or out, like the death of DX9. May it rest in peace. It was amazing when it came out, but I definitely think it stayed with us longer than wanted and held us back for a while. Now, last summer, we deleted the gray, as you saw earlier, with all these lighting changes and overhauling of our tone mapper, which really brightened and deepened the colors of EVE. As well as changes to shaders and reflections, making the ships just really feel like they're in those environments. And here's another before and after. You can really see the frontal highlight on the side of the ship. It's just like, you can see it's in that nebula. It's reflecting off of it. And you can see the orange tint on the side of the ship, and as we spin around, it's coming from there. Really bringing the room together. Our graphics programmers have also been working hard on improving our reflections. And with the March release this year, we did a general pass of enabling reflections across the game, now including, but not limited to, stations and jump gates, explosions, hangars, adverts, fires on objects, standalone effects like wormholes, and more. Now let's check out some examples. You already saw this earlier, this wormhole reflecting on the ship. Really cool. And just, yeah, all those details really reflecting on the surface of the ship now, all rendering in real time. And here we see a station. Maybe you can make it up. Right there, it's there. It's reflecting on the ship. So as you fly around, you feel like this thing is over there on your ship. Explosions as well, of course. Making everything a bit more realistic. And another thing, now this was actually implemented years ago, but it's so cool I have to mention it. The warp tunnel reflects on the surface of your ship. Absolutely love that. And now, with the latest changes, the difference between high and highest reflection quality is how fast it's updating the reflection. So here you can see it at high quality, and it's a little bit laggy, the reflections on the ship. And then we switch to highest, there, and they're butter smooth. So on highest, they're basically rendering every angle of the reflection, every single frame. So if you've got a good graphics card. Now, yeah, also on Jita and other places in the game, we have these small world flavor advertisements. They're also in reflections now. All just little bits to add to immersion. And while we're at Jita, I just want to mention this one thing we did while building it. We talked to our lawyer, who then went out and got us permission from the original artist to, include a replica of the Eve monument there. So the thought here was, wouldn't it be cool if, in Eve there was a place you could visit, and then when you come to Iceland, you can visit the real thing. The real world version is still by the harbor, by our old office, but the plan is to move it to the new office. So do give it a visit if you haven't already, and why not stop by inside Eve on your next Jira shopping trip. So, you know us. We're always thinking of ways to enhance EVE Online, and one of the first versions of a new beast came out last year in the ESS update. This is, most of the tech behind it is pretty much ready. It's called EVE Stretch 3, as we call it. It allows us to run the visuals of stretch effects based on state. So instead of the old school thing where they're constantly fading in and out, like here, the above example, then we can have be specifically showing, the start of an effect versus the middle and the end. So these are things that will aid in just being able to grasp the experience of combat in the future when we apply this to the rest of the effects. Because you can tell, something is starting to affect you versus everything just fading in and out. They'll also be adaptive, so they won't become very, too stretched or too squished, depending on how far away the target object is. And by doing that, the effect can retain more of its distinctive look. Also, depending on the size of the target object, the destination effects will adjust their size accordingly. So someone in a frigate, for example, won't be necessarily overwhelmed by effects that can fit anything from a battleship to a cruiser or even bigger. Should fit that ship. It's like the battleship is actually targeting the frigate, so a better experience for people in the targeted ships. There'll also be, that was a click. Another thing we can do now, and this opens up for a lot of possibilities, is that the stretch effect can reach into the targeted object, like it does here on the ESS, and start to modify things on the target. Like here, it starts to flicker these specific lights on the target, showing that this effect from your ship is affecting that target. So in the future, we could do things with this, like potentially have warp disruptors look like they're actually affecting the ship boosters, or maybe have an energy neutralizer module that then, when it hits the target, leaves a trail of energy where it's sucking it out. So that could be something that helps, improve at-a-glance combat readability when you're jumping into a fight, and you don't necessarily have the UI icons of what's happening to the ships you haven't looked at yet. And in 2019, at EVE Vegas, we showed you this slide. And we can't really come back up here again without giving you an updated status. So this was fittingly titled Far, Far Future Stuff, No Promises, okay. But I think that held up. So what I can tell you is we've had 1 year of COVID. We've had 2 years of COVID. And it's now solidly future stuff, because we are going to be looking into what we can do in the next 12 months and seeing what we can deliver. Now that was stuff that's a bit of a ways out, but what's coming much sooner? It's the Nebulous. And as you might have seen in the keynote, we're doubling the resolution, really bringing out all the cool little details. Should make it really rather noticeable in game. It might be a bit hard with these monitors and the video compression and that. So you can see there on the left side, it's what was a sharp line and kind of looks like a little V, is just a blurry mess. So once this is, you see this on the entire thing, it's way better than before. And it's slated to go out in the June release. So you can enjoy this very soon. Also, as mentioned in the keynote earlier, they're overhauling all of our level of detail systems, which opens up for us to have higher fidelity ship meshes and any other objects. But that's not only on meshes, there's also the turrets, the textures, which now operate independently from the mesh slots for the first time. So no texture popping either, and higher fidelity textures can be authored now. And beyond that, we also have now lotting of turrets, which before used to just pop out. And we have lotting of any new subship objects, such as VFX on ships, or new things we can envision in the future. And that opens up for a lot more ability to add different things to ships. Now, to talk about some of the possibilities we are exploring and envisioning using all this tech that's coming online, let's hand it over to Mr. CCP Bluescreen.
Thank you. Yeah. So building Eve bigger and better. So how do we performantly render bigger space dungeons, better environments, and the increasingly complex assets such as stations and the hangar interiors without melting your computers? For that, we need to talk a little bit about a new system that we've been developing that we call the Eve extension system. Up until now, as far as extending or customizing any asset by spawning other assets on them, we've been restricted basically to turrets on ships, which in itself is a very specific system and not really usable for our purposes going into the future. So we really need something more configurable and adaptive for this. Something that can have state machines for running mesh animations and stuff like that. So here's like a prototype of something like that. Here we are spawning, on this avatar, we are spawning a bunch of apocalypses, and on those apocalypses we are spawning rifters. And on those rifters we are spawning Templars. So the children here that are spawned on will automatically, like by default, inherit the values, the color values, and the what we call the faction information, space object data, as we call it, like down the line. So you will maintain like visual identity across, but you can also at any point overwrite it. So you see the apocalypses here has not the basic MR template, and also the rifters are not inheriting that, but then the Templars go back to it again. So this gives us full control. And here, on this Hornet-Geddon, you see the extension inheriting that faction data. So this is basically stuff like Empire, faction, corporation presets, and surface material, glow colors, and logo information. All kinds of things like that to keep the visual consistency across these objects. And the obvious question then is, how does this impact performance? How many horns can I have on a Hornet-Geddon? And so for maximum horns, we call on instancing. Here you see an early stress test of the instance system in action, where we are rendering about 400 keepstars. And you might be able to see down there in the right-hand corner, we are still running at a solid 60 frames per second. So that's great. Even more instance keepstars. So outside of this being crowded and claustrophobic, this is us investing in the future and unlocking the future of Eve, so we can build bigger and better things while keeping your computers alive at the same time. And so with all this, obvious next step is corpse covered rifters, of course, right? So when we'll make that happen, but maybe we'll also have other uses for this. And for a look at that, I'll hand you over to CCP Binson.
So these are some of the things that we are exploring. So besides rifters full of corpses, extensions mean we'll be able to modify your ships based on fitted modules or skin cosmetics, and by that bringing more variety and emphasis on your ship's roles or existing hulls. No, two existing hulls. Some purely additive things like extra plating, if you add an armor or other module to your ship. There's a lot of potential here for showing you what your choice of module fitting does to your existing hull. Here are some of the role-based explorations on the Heron. Like the early Tech 3 cruisers, but with more emphasis on ship modules affecting the hulls. These are some very exciting ideas for us to look better into in the future. something for us to strive for. Here's a recent actual example of a cosmetic change that shows the possibilities of the extension system. By adding slight variety to the base geometry, as was done with the Alliance tournament skin, with added parts, antennas, and other modified geometry. And with cosmetics in mind, we are looking at incorporating progression systems into our skin designs. Skins that could be modified based on kill count or rank. More exploration here, internally known as the snake hat. That could fit well for a Serpentis skin line tied to faction standings or else. Here's a similar concept for a Rifter killer skin. And it's 3 stages. And a live example of the Killmark skin, where you can see it reacting and growing with its destroyed ship. So, from ship explorations using the new extension system to some actual upcoming extension feature, where will we be extending next? We brought some love to the interiors since last Fanfest. We did the new Cheetah 4.4 interior with grander scale and increased immersion. Brought up the scale and importance of the iconic trade hub, making it feel more alive. And for the renovation of the new player experience and creation of air, we did the inside of the new air stations. The first hangar experience for new players in New Eden. So what's next? So we asked ourselves the question, what's next for hangars and interiors? Our Empire hangars have had a visual update with lighting improvements and other things over the years. But now they are falling short compared to our newest hangars. So we decided to create some designs for them that would also use the capabilities of our new extension systems. We started looking at the current Empire hangars and what could be improved. Our exploration started with figuring out how to emphasize the shape language of the exterior to fit better with its interior. On the left are sketches and examples of top-down layout designs and views for a few different hangars for each Empire. On the right is an image of size categories and relevant locations inside the hangar. The size categories are small, medium, and capital, because now we want more than one docking location for each hangar. With further exploration, we designed a prototype of a Minmatar hangar with distributed docking locations for small and medium class ships. For each docking location, there's a platform for relevant ship size category. Here is an early design for a small ship platform, which would hold shuttles to destroyers. Here's a 3D prototype of the layout, featuring several docking locations, both small and medium, and camera exploration. And a mood exploration for the Minmatar capital hangar. So we did some storyboarding and sketches exploring how it could feel to have more than one platform for ships, how we move away from you being a solo pilot in isolation to a more populated environment with more sense of scale and feeling of being part of a living environment with other players. Here's an idea for your docking location. Next to a row of platforms with ships in same size class. And opposite a potential location for other player ships. And seeing a capital in the distance from your platform with a possible goal to strive for. And some humans for scale, for imaginative purposes only. After still image exploration, we have an animated visualization of camera coming into a hangar and docking. And then seeing the larger ships above you, emphasizing the scale of your ship. After some early explorations, few discussions, and player requests in the past, we focused in on delivering the new hangar experience inside the Uppel player-made structures. Here is a top-down view of the new Uppel hangar design with distributed docking locations for small and medium-class ships. Here are some early work-in-progress images of the interior, using it to nail down the dimensions and scale, figuring out the sense of scale between small and medium ships, and a bird's-eye view of the main interior with multiple ships in their docks.
Pilots are reminded not to engage in unlicensed ISTA activities and all items are sold freely.
This is a 3D prototype layout that we created to get more emphasis on what we're doing. So when we have these things sort of figured out, it's good to establish sort of a visual target for the mood and the atmosphere that we're going for. It helps with lighting, where we add more sense of station life and station activity, and possible locations for Alliance banners. Here are some further detailed designs of parts of the hangar, for example, the main entrance. And designs for a hangar main 3D hologram location. Here are some small platform bracket designs which hold the small platform in place and surrounding structure. Here's a variation to those brackets with animation ideas. Here are some early side profile designs of the Uppel small platform. A perspective view of the small platform with added detail. And animation ideas for movable parts in your environment. And some explored variations of the small platform that we could possibly create with the new extension system. In the past, we have had ideas to incorporate clickable elements inside of the hangars. Clickable things that represent station services, for example. Or large-scale loading bars or notifications for skill queue info. Status panels, market prices, agent mission notifications, and, for example, a surrounding star map. We included some of those ideas within the Uppel platform designs, where we spread them around the ship. So each corner of the platform has the potential to serve a function down the line, like station services, agent interactions, ship maintenance, industry and manufacturing, and player info. Here's an idea for some contextual clickable things behind your ships. A possible location for your extra pods next to your ship. So these clickable UI ideas that we are thinking about are still in early exploration and aren't scheduled to be included in the first release of the hangars, but this is something that we're very much thinking about. Then we have the medium Uppel platform that holds the medium-class ships. The size category that will be visible on top of these platforms include cruisers and operators. Here you can see the medium platform in one of its locations within the Uppel hangar. So around these platforms, we are building the hangar, but in parts. Currently, all hangars in-game are a single large asset, like most of our assets in-game. But with the new way we are going to build hangars with a new extension system, they will function more like our Tech 3 cruisers. They will be split into layers, which will open up the possibility to have a variety of hangars with a small set of different parts. We will then be able to vary the hangar interiors based on station services, the type of structure, and its location within the EVE universe. These are the current parts that make up the assembled Upwell hangar using the extension system. Multiple platforms, small and medium, distributed around the main hangar. And of course, for the deployable Upwell structures that are fitted with a capital hangar, they will be fitted with one. So, a new Upwell capital hangar is upcoming. When all of these parts have been put together, we need to fill them with light and life. So I hand it over to CCP Myrkur for further discussion on that.
Thank you. Oh. So we set about designing this layer here around the small platform because we wanted this to be a pretty reactive experience, something that reacts to when you do something, things happen. And to do this, the platforms will have 4 states of change: an inactive sleep state for when you are not present at the dock, an idle state while you're docked, as well as a specific look when you're docking and versus undocking, all to make this a polished and reactive experience. Since you're going to be seeing them in the following videos, best to call them out now, how the lit particles are here. There's a layer of those around the platform. And we're also distributing those around just the general hangar area. Also important to note is that the idea is to have an array of these small platforms down the left side of the frame. And the rest of the hangar is further behind in development than the small platform, but we're working our way through it. Here you can see a docking venture, and you can see the holograms lighting up as the ship comes in. Then they basically fade away to a calmer state so that the focus can be on your ship. This is very much the shrine of the ship. After a while of being docked also, your boosters start to kind of cool off. And here's what just straight up undocking looks like right now. And you get this moment of feeling like you're actually leaving, unlike our current hangars, and fades to black as before. But what happens if you cancel the undock? This is a problem we haven't had before. So where's the ship going to go? Well, we have this dock assigned to us already. Maybe we should just turn back. So yeah, this part is going to be sped up right here. Boosters off. Maneuvering for landing. And sneaky little side note, if our devious plan comes to fruition, then maybe this is just a way more epic ship spinning. Do a little, So, if you ever run out of platforms in the hangar because you have too many ships and you want to switch to one that's not in a dock already, then we have also made it so that we can materialize in the ship in and out in place. Lights turn on. Nice. And another thing we're looking into is connecting the outside of the structures with the interior hangars, so you can kind of see, the outside state of the structure. Yeah, these are just some placeholder textures right there. Work in progress, all of this. But it's not just that notification on its lonesome. We also want to convey the overall state of the structure through this layer across the hangar, indicated here in red, so that the mood of the hangar kind of matches what's happening. In this video, you're seeing basically the shield, just normal, everything's good to go. These lights are inheriting the color of whatever the faction of the station is. This is then when the shield transitions into armor. Get a little bit of different notification. The lights in the top right turn on, extra lights, and we get this rhythmic beat of a little bit of there's a little bit of urgency and danger now. Maybe you should check out what's going outside. We might also drive this based on the structure vulnerability states. It's just TBD what makes most sense to hook this up to. Now, some of you probably remember the tagline from when Apple Citadels were first released, Rack Their Dreams. Well, now we're into Hull, where things really start to happen. The rhythmic beating speeds up. You get the sirens and warning lights, klaxons, peer and rotate. We may also have the fires and gas leaks progressively ramp up as the health of the structure depletes, making it an ever more precarious environment. And just a reminder, this is all work in progress, and we need to figure out how much of this we can do before, depending on rendering performance. And of course, the lighting in the overall hangar is far from final. But if all goes decently well, then when your racking machines begin, you're not just going to be racking their dreams, but giving your enemies nightmares of sirens and hangars burning in the night. Or at least you hope you're doing it to the other guy, right? We're very excited to be bringing you these new hangar environments and taking you up to a new level. Before that we leave the topics of hangars for now, let's take one last look at this video. One cool thing you might have noticed there also is that when the ship is landing, it is changing, the mesh animations are changing into the packed mode of the ship. Really, really sweet. And now to talk about the environmental things, let's bring CCP blue screen back up.
Awesome. So no more spinning in stations, just docking and undocking in station.
Yeah.
Nice. So environmental things. Yes, firstly, we've already touched on the past environments briefly, but I just want to circle back to the new player experience environments that we created. So these environments were big multi-team projects with a lot of new tech and functionality beyond just the visuals that Team Trilambda delivered. A new story-driven node graph system were developed for the dungeon editor. So amongst other things, we deliver authored cinematic camera moments within the dungeons environments themselves. And again, in the latest mining experience environment, the dynamic environment assets coupled with these authored cinematic camera moments work together to deliver some very, very cool moments in the environment experience. And among many new functionalities, we've now, for example, been triggering effects and animations and other dynamic assets based on things like camera viewpoint and player proximity. So while talking a bit about the mining experience, this is some early explorations into the mining environment. And here's some 3D exploration inside our engine, just using various available assets for some visualization of the feel and look of the scene. Super useful. This is quite cool. And another new, very cool part of these environment experiences, of course, the characters that our amazing character team produced and the interaction with these. Here's everyone's favorite fleet commander, Balin, and Elias, and Vesper, and of course, Aura. So Team Muppets, our character team, had a huge part to play in making these environments feel immersive and interactive with the agent and aura animation and dialogue. So a lot of new tech and assets went into this, and more than just looking great for the new player experience, it provides us with a lot of tools and awesome new stuff going forwards with future immersive environment creation. And this is true for pretty much all the new tech developed for this feature. So let's just have a look at some of these things I'm talking about in action, starting with Aura, telling you a little bit about what's going on and how weapons works.
It is unarmed. A proper ship comes with proper weaponry. We must scan the debris for a space-worthy vessel.
So apart from the cool effects and assets and animation going on in this scene, there's also a little example of what I talked about before with the camera triggers. So this explosion is not going to happen until you look at that part of the wreck over to the left. And there's a bunch of other triggers that make sure that you don't miss all these cool things in there by looking the wrong way at the wrong time, which is really cool. And also, in the beginning of the mining experience that we come to in a bit, we'll see some good example of the cinematic moments I was talking about, which is happening inside the dungeons themselves.
Captain, I have run several scenarios that could explain the mystery signal Air discovered at the mining site. According to my calculations, the scale of Air's mining operation is rather impressive for such a young corporation. They must be remarkably well funded. It is little wonder that Miss Calatrix would suspect espionage.
And yeah, a good example of the dynamic assets in the dungeons here also.
Further speculation will have to wait. We're being hailed by that orca.
And of course the new mining effects. They're awesome. So cool mining gangs, NPC mining gangs in here as well. And lots of rocks, lots of space rocks, which kind of bridges us into the next topic on hand. There in the background, the huge backdrop rock is one of our first efforts into space rocks of new. We have a few of them, and by a few, I really do mean we have a few of them. So by proud of that, you've probably all met this guy a few times before, and you've probably seen this guy plenty of times, and this tangled mess, you know as well. Even our mineral asteroids only have 4 shape variations each. So you know it's not a big credit to your asset library when you start to get familiar with every little pebble and rock scattered around. And another issue with it is the size variation, or the lack thereof. Any size variation in any of the before-mentioned assets, and this only really applies to the mineral asteroids, is scale. They're simply scaled up, and for the asteroids, it's depending on how much ore is allocated to each asteroid. And that's not super cool, and it makes ginormous asteroids look exactly the same as tiny asteroids. And also the bigger they get, the worse the texture resolution gets relative to the assets around it and the ship you're flying in. So basically you would want to specifically author tiny asteroids, huge asteroids, and everything there in between. So we did already start to look at this and these kind of assets with the Abyss. We created 3 new abyssal asteroid sets, which all have small, medium, large, and extra large variations. But we wanted to create more with more variation, everything from generally usable generic asteroids to region-specific, rare and unique asteroids. So we started doing what we do. We started drawing dark and gloomy silhouettes of space rocks. All kinds of space rocks, like pointy cliff-type space rocks and basalt-type space rocks. We started looking at different effects ideas like clouds, surface cracks, interior glow, ore. And here again, concept ideas for surface detail and fall-off debris, effects, clouds. and just different archetypes and different variations, maybe endemic to specific regions of space. Now, when I say that, I'll hurry up and add that we are only doing art here, so there's no initial resource distribution involved here. The basic concept, at least in the first stages, is purely decorative environment asteroids. We can't forget about exploring the size variation here. How does a specific archetype of asteroid look when it's the size of a car versus when it's the size of a mountain? And also we start looking into ways of creating these asteroids, softwares, workflows, here using different procedural noises in different softwares, different parameters. So we're just exploring all kinds of shapes. And of course there are in-game considerations that we have to evaluate when looking at the different designs. Things such as poly count, texture application, asset collision. We settled pretty quickly on utilizing some sort of procedural asset generation software, basically to speed up the process of creating more asteroids. So once you have developed the recipe for a specific archetype of asteroid, you can extremely quickly create a large number of variations of that type. Just so you don't keep running into those 3 rocks that you nicknamed 2 years ago. We started pretty early in the process already. Experimenting with some assets in Houdini, just taking simple test assets from Houdini through a process into our engine, applying textures, etc., seeing how that worked out, getting ideas, and building on that. We were exploring different simple noises on simple shapes. So basically you can apply noises upon noises, creating both your base shapes and your surface details on top of those shapes. And you can take that further and get more complex. So you move into more complex setup, building like bigger type rocks, more shape variation with a lot more going on, maybe additional rock fragments, break-offs, and stuff like that. So, but we took one of the really basic concepts to begin with a little bit further. So this is some really very early prototypes of the first generic asteroid type that was created procedurally in Houdini. And we start looking at what works, what doesn't, UVs, how we're going to UV this, texture mapping, texture resolution. You try and look at all that, but all you really see is just faces, just eyes staring right back at you. Yeah. Because that's just how the human brain works. So it's really annoying. But anyway, we'll move on and adapt, persevere. Here we compare like 4 types of asteroids. The 2 on the left are the 2 of the abyssal asteroid types. All the way on the right is an ore asteroid scaled up to that size. And then in the middle there is the one of our new prototype asteroids. And we can look at the texture resolution we get just by comparing with an asset in front. We scale that up. You see, if you compare from the old asteroids to abyssal asteroids to a new test subject, we're moving in the right direction. And also graphics text, such as surface shaders, very much come into play here, basically allowing us to tile and blend different textures together for surface variation and resolution. So, so this is something that's still very much in development on this project. But I mean, we can already measure some good quality progress by optimizing our asset development and applying new approaches. So, don't know if you can see that, but up there we have Jita. Right there is Jita. So this is a pretty big space rock. And if we go up close, we can see how it manages. So, I mean, that's already pretty decent, and we're definitely making some progress here. And so we use our Houdini recipe, and we build a few different size variations, and we can start playing around with the surface and surface effects of these guys, create some initial test environments, and checking lighting on the textures and on the meshes. How does that work out? From battleship-sized asteroids to mountains at a whole different scale than anything else in K-space at the moment. And so we also managed to keep the polycount and usage of these polygons to a level where we can maintain some interesting details on the silhouettes of our assets. And yeah, we should be able to build some pretty interesting environments with stuff like this. But hey, let's have a look at what an environment like this might look like. So we fitted an exploration rifter, and we sent it out below the asteroids. So let's check out how that went. Right. Cool. So what's next for EVE Environments? What's the next project, and where could we, for example, use all these space rocks? So right now we're working on updating all of the career agent environments in one big pass. So this is a very different kind of challenge than the standalone environments that was developed for the new player experience, and requires a very different approach from a content update viewpoint. The career agent dungeons include 5 paths. It's 89 dungeons total. It introduces 4 pirate factions, and also introduces a bunch of game mechanics to players like combat, looting, scanning, hacking, and so on. So in EVE we have literally thousands of dungeons like these, in pretty bad need of a graphics overhaul. And if we're going to have any hope of ever getting around to updating all of those, we need to approach this in an effective and systematic way. Amongst other things, this means updating and using existing assets in clever ways. It also means developing a system of thematic environment templates, like post-process settings, like pirate and exploration and combat environments, for example, that can be reused across New Eden to create environments with identity as well as variation. So in this case, for the career agent dungeons, it made sense to nail down and define like the pirate infrastructure asset line. And here are some examples of these. Like some of these structures already. Some were missing a few things that we put in there. So we have the blood data line, and we have outposts and hideouts and warehouses. Here is the Serpentis structure line. And the angel structures. There's also towers there, and pirate dens or labs. And finally, Godistas. And it's important to us that when you meet this pirate infrastructure in Even, it's the correct style and look for that pirate faction. And this is unfortunately not something that is currently very well implemented across our environments. And after this work and these assets, create an asset library line that can be used going forward in all pirate environments. And there's many other non-pirate assets that can be quickly updated to enhance immersion, variation. Take this guy, for instance. A top choice and favorite for the dungeon building of yesteryear. This tiny little structure is quite a chameleon. So this is used as in New Eden environments. And it's many things. Here it's a prison. It can also be a casino or a narcotics lab also. Or maybe a pleasure hub. All right, there might be some crossover there, but this Swiss Army knife of a structure also serves as a hotel, and a hotel with a radiation leak. Yeah, so I mean, we already had lots of assets in EVE, and surely we must have some structures that can fit these use cases better, and maybe that way we can add a bit of variation and immersion in the environment. How about a Concord prison facility, for instance? Or like the old Titan Yard Inn Hotel. Could even leak radiation if the story calls for that. Or a proper pleasure hub hotel tower. maybe even including its own casino and nightclub edition here. I mean, so looking into the future, those are just a few examples how we are preparing updates in big groups of dungeons with updated and reusable structure systems and templates. Oh, look, the roulette is running. Yes. No, you lost. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Wonder how that looks if you win. We're gonna have to find out. Anyways, for the career agents, we are looking to deliver those dungeons with the June release. And I just got a few quick examples of some very much work in projects dungeons, work in progress. Like, so this is the hidden smuggler gate, for instance. It's one of the dungeons in the cash for Capsuleer's path. We have the, we just showed you the radioactive, this is the radioactive hotel I showed you before. Also from the cache, whoa. Okay. So yeah, also from the cache for Capsuleers. And the final one is the Pleasure Hub, the pirate hidden run from Soldiers of Fortune path. Oh, he won, see? All right, but while on environments, I believe there is another batch of dungeons that might be seeing a big revival. For that, I present to you, again, CCP Midtgut.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, does anyone remember back in the early 2000s, EVE Online used to have these really interesting and atmospheric dungeon environments? Okay. Well, sadly, due to the ravages of time and massive changes to the rendering engine, they were left in disrepair and eventually toggled off from being rendered in 2011 during major engine rework. And I don't know about y'all, but I really loved these environments back in the day, and I feel like they did a lot to give you that once in a while moment of just wow factor and awesome when you jump into or warp into a dungeon and something just like completely different is there. That's just so integral to exploration. So in Into the Abyss expansion, we did something similar. We got some base tech for this, but now the time has come to re-enable these in EVE and resurrect them at greater fidelity. Let's take a look at what they look like. So around 76 dungeons will be getting their environments back with unique accompanying soundscapes, as you just heard. And if everything goes according to plan, they will be out in the June release. So to wrap things up, and before we go, I just want to say we're so excited to be bringing you all of these improvements across EVE. Lots of good stuff coming. Cool. Please come and chat to us at Fanfest. We're here to talk to you, and especially as artists, about art and graphics and all these features that are coming. Give us all the feedback you can muster. You can find the art team. I can feed the art team. No, you can find them upstairs at the art corner. And there will be an art and audio roundtable tomorrow in roundtable room 1 at 1400 hours. So that's pretty much it for us, but we'd like to leave you with a little highlight video and hope to see you at the pub crawl. Let's play the video.
lagging audio?
No audio.
I will remind you, my protocol allows me to take full control of this ship as a safeguard against capsuleers that enter a mentally or neurologically unstable state. You have been warned.
Visual supremacy.
Visual supremacy.
Yeah, exactly. Visual supremacy is a good word for it. Visual supremacy.
Visual supremacy.
Visual supremacy.
Visual supremacy.
Show me a space game that looks better than this. Well done. It's really impressive.
Bless, bless.